We're approaching Rosh Hashana. That's Simei Tshuva. So it's time, probably the perfect time to have an honest discussion about Tshuva. So we begin the vidui with the words Elokeinu v'Elokeinu v'Seinu tavoi lefanecha tfiloseinu v'al tis'ala mitchinoseinu she'ein anu azei ponim ukshei oiref loimar lefanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeinu v'Seinu tzadikim anachnu v'loi chotonu avol anachnu v'avoseinu chotonu. And then we begin to say Oshamnu bagadnu gazalnu dibarnu doifi etc. L'chayra, this Hakdama, this preface of is totally unnecessary. I mean, what are we're saying? Gashamnu, bagadnu, gazalnu. So obviously, we're not tzaddikim. We must have sinned. We're saying it. So what do we mean to say when we say she'ein onu azei ponim ukshei oiref loim lefanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeinu v'Seinu tzadikim anachnu v'loi chotonu avol anachnu v'Seinu chotonu. Really, it has almost a sound of that we're asking to be rewarded for the fact that we're not azei ponim ukshei oiref to say tzadikim anachnu v'loi chotonu. I mean, we deserve a reward for that. I mean, if we sinned. So obviously we're not tzaddikim, and it goes without saying. Yeah. So what do we mean by this? Also, I mean, we're not talking to people. We're talking about loima lefanecha Hashem Elokeinu v'Elokeinu v'Seinu tzaddikim anachnu v'loi chotonu. In as much as we're talking to him, we recognize the fact that he is a tzayf and historis. So we can't lie to him. So it would seem that we're not talking about a lie. So what is it? What's the azus ponim and the kashius orif that can allow a person to say tzadikim anachnu v'loi chotonu, in spite of the fact that he's not lying? I mean, the source of this statement, l'chora, even though I looked in the Mefarshim and I can't find it, but the source of this statement would seem to be in Yirmiyah, Kapitel Beis, Pasuk Lamed Hey, where the Pasuk says, Hineni nishpot oischa al omreich loy chotasi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'm entering into judgment with you because of your saying, I have not sinned, al omreich loy chotasi. So, we're saying that we're not saying that. We're not saying tzadikim anachnu v'loi chotonu. Aval anachnu v'avoseinu chotonu. But we still have no clue why is it necessary to say that if we're already saying Oshamnu bagadnu gazalnu. So I think that when somebody says loi chotosi, he's not denying the facts. He's not lying as far as the fact that he did what he did, and he even knows that it was the wrong thing. But nevertheless, he doesn't take responsibility. He's really convinced that it's not his fault. Whose fault is it? It could be his parents, it could be his friends, it could be emotional distress, it could be the environment, it could be even his psychological makeup. He's wired that way. But however it is, he's not responsible for what he did, so he's not guilty. Loi chotasi doesn't mean I didn't do whatever I did. It's not a lie. And therefore, he could even say it to the Rebbeinu Shalom. He really, honestly thinks loi chotasi. You know, the first chait in human history was the chait Eitz Hadas. What does it say over there? Vayikra Hashem Elokim Adam Vayomer Lo Yayeko. Vayomer Es Kolcho Shomati Bagon. Va'iro Ki Eroi Monoichi. Va'echavei. Vayomer Mi Higid L'cho Ki Eroi Mato. Hamin ha'etz asher tzivisicho, levilti achol mimenu achalto. Vayomer Adam ha'isha asher nasata imadihi, nosna li min ha'etz va'oichel. Okay, so it's her fault. Vayomer Hashem Elokim la'isha, mazo isasis. Vatomer ha'isha, hanochosh hishiani va'oichel. Yeah, it's the serpent that deceived me. So Adam and Chava are not denying the facts. They're not saying they didn't eat. They admit that they ate. And they also admit that they knew that it was the wrong thing to do. I mean, they're not, there's no argument about that. But Adam says that she gave me the fruit, and he says, and she says, the snake convinced me. So they did it, but they're not guilty. They're not responsible for what they did. So a person could know that Bogadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu, Doifi, and he's not lying, but nevertheless, he could say in front of the Yoidea Ta'alumos, Loichotosi, he's not guilty. The second sin in human history is the Chet of Cain had killed his brother Hevel. Over there, it would already seem that he's denying the facts, because the Pasuk says, Vayehi b'hiyosom basode, vayokom Cain el Hevel ochiv vayarge, vayom Hashem el Cain, ei Hevel ochicha. Where is he? So he responds. He says, Vayomer lo yodati, hashomer ochi anoichi. So the simple meaning is that he's saying, I don't know where he got lost. I'm not my brother's keeper. And how should I know where he is? But it's kind of strange that he's talking to the Rebbeinu Shalom, who's a Yoidea Talumos, and he thinks he can get away with a blatant lie like this. So it would seem that this is the side of the Midrash Tanchuma, right there, that says as follows. This is the lashon of the Midrash Tanchuma. Amalei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ei Hevel Achicha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to him, where's your brother, Hevel? Amar lo yodati, hashomer achi anoichi. Ata hu shomer kol habrios. You're the keeper of all people. V'atom avakshe miyodi, and you're asking me for him? Moshel ma'adav adoyme, leganev shegonav kelim balaylo. A ganev stole kelim at night, v'loy nitpas, and he wasn't caught. La boiker tofsoy hashoyer. In the morning, the gatekeeper found him, caught him. Amaloi lomo ganav tes kelim. He said to him, why did you steal the kelim? Amaloi, he said to him, ani ganev. I mean, I'm a ganev. V'lo hinachti umnasi. I didn't abandon my job. I did what a ganev does. Aval ato umnoscho bashar lishmor. Your job is to be the gatekeeper. Lama hinachto umnoscho. Why didn't you keep your job? V'at achshav atoy melikach. Now you're asking me why I stole the kelim. You didn't do your job. I did my job. V'af kayin kach omar. Ani harakti oisoi. I killed him. Barasa b'yetzara. Ato shomer es hakol. You watch over the entire bria. V'li hinachta oisoi lahargoi. You let me kill him. Ato hu shaharaktoi. He says to the Rebbeinu Shalom, you killed him. Shenikreisa anoichi. You're called anoichi. She'ilu kibalta karboni kemoisoi. If you would have accepted my carbon like his carbon, lo hayisi miskani, but I wouldn't have been jealous. I wouldn't have killed him. Miyad heshivoi. Rebbeinu Shalom says back to him, Masi so killed me'achi chotzoyakin. So the Medrash is teaching the pasuk hashomer achi. Am I the shomer of my brother? Anoichi. The Anoichi Hashem Elokecha is the shomer of the entire world. And he enabled, facilitated the murder. So he admits that he did it. But he's nevertheless not the murderer. He actually accuses the Rebbeinu Shalom. He gave him a Yetzer Hara, and Memela, that's my job. Just like the Ganav and the Moshel. I'm wired that way. I do whatever is I do whatever is natural to me. I did my job. He's saying to the Rebbeinu Shalom, you didn't do your job. You didn't block me from carrying out the murder. And beyond that, he's saying that he did whatever he did only because of the jealousy. And this Kaviyachal, the Rebbeinu Shalom has a direct responsibility because he accepted the korban of Cain and did not accept his korban, and he caused him to be jealous. So this is really a very strong mashal of the Omreich Loichotasi. I mean, now the one to blame is not the wife and not the serpent. It's like he's the gatekeeper. It's his job to not allow evil to happen, and it's his job. Ata umnoscha bashar lishmor lama hinachta umnoscha. So we're not talking again about lying. We're talking about not taking responsibility. You know, the Rambam in the Koiseres, the Hilchis Tshuva, the Rambam writes, the Rambam always writes in the Koiseres which mitzvahs are going to appear in the following halachas. So in Hilchis Tshuva, there's only one mitzvah, but the Rambam nevertheless says like this: mitzvahs asay achas, v'hi sheyoshuv achoyte michetoi l'fnei Hashem v'yisvade ubiur mitzvah zu v'ikorim hanigrorim imo biglolo b'prokim elu. In other words, the mitzvah of tshuva and the fundamental principles that follow in relation to it are explained in the coming prokim. So what are the ikorim, hanigrorim, ima, biglolo that come along with the mitzvah of tshuva? So in the first four prokim, the Rambam talks about tshuva. But then in Perek Hey, he begins with Rishus l'chol adam nesuna. Imrotza lahatois atzmoi lederech toiva v'liois sadik, or Rishus biyodov. Imrotza lahatois atzmoi lederech ra v'liois rosha, or Rishus biyodov. So the Rambam is saying that free will is granted to all people. If one desires to turn himself to the path of good and be righteous, the choice is his. And if he desires to turn to the path of evil and be wicked, it's also his choice. And the Rambam dedicates the entire Perek Hey and Perek Vav to this topic of free will. In Perek Zayin, he comes back to the topic of tshuva, and he talks about all the advantages of tshuva and what it brings, and in that on tshuva depends the geula ha'asidus, the redemption from the golus. And from there until the end of Hilchos Tshuva, he talks about Chaye Olam Habo. So these are the ikrim that are nigrar ima biglolo. These are the ikrim that need to be discussed in the context of Tshuva. Because somebody that doesn't believe be'emunah shlema, that he has free will, and that only he is the one that chooses how to live his life, can't do Tshuva. A person that thinks that there's somebody else that made choices for him, that his parents are at fault, that his environment is at fault, even that his psychological makeup is at fault. So even if he knows what he's aware of what he did and he knows that it's wrong, he's not shayach to tshuva. That's the hineni nishpat oisach al omreich loichotasi. Only when a person recognizes that it's not because of the Isha Asher Nosata Imodi, and it's not because of the Nocha Asher Shiani, and it's not because the Rebbeinu Shalom enabled and facilitated the Avera, but it's because he chose, then he could say, Avol Anachnu Vavoseinu Chatanu. You know, Yeshaya Novi says, Dirshu Hashem Behimotzoi, Kra'uhu Behiyoisoi Korov, Yazoiv Rosha Darkoi, V'ish Oven Machshevoisov, V'yoshoy Vel Hashem V'yirachameu Ve'ela Loikeinu, Hiyar Belisloyach, Ki loy machshevoisai machshevoiseichem veloy darchechem drochoinu Hashem. So, what's the flow of these psukim? Yazev Rosh Darka v'yishov machshevoisav v'yoshev Hashem v'yirachmeu is a call on us to do tshuva. How does that connect with loy machshevoisai? My thoughts are not your thoughts, and your ways are not my ways. Loy machshevoisai machshevoiseichem veloy darchechem. But not only that the psukim are one after the other, but the pasuk says ki loy machshevoisai machshevoiseichem, meaning that since loy machshevoisai machshevoiseichem v'loy darchechem drochai, therefore yazev Rosh Darkei v'shava machshevoisai v'yoshev al Hashem v'yirachameu. So I think that the Rambam really says pshat in these psukim. In Hilchis Tshuva, Perek Hey Halacha Hey, the Rambam says, Shema Toimar, V'haloy HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoideya, kol ma sheyiyeh, koidim sheyiyeh. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows in advance what's going to happen. Yeda shezeh tzadik, oy zeh Rosha, shezeh tzadik oy Rosha, oy lo yeda. Does he know or does he not know that this person is going to be a tzadik or a Rosha? Im yoda shehu yiyeh tzadik, yefshe shelo yeh tzadik. If the Rebbeinu Shalom knew in advance that he's going to be a tzaddik, he can't not be a tzaddik. The if the Rebbeinu Shalom knew that he could be this or that, lo yoda hadavar al buryoy. He didn't really know it in its entirety, in its fullness. So the Rambam says the answer to this question is Arucha me'eretz mido rechava miniyam v'kama ikorim gdoilim v'harorim rabim tluyim bo avol tzorech atoleida v'lahovim b'davazeh shaniyam. So the Rambam says that this is really very deep and broad, and a lot depends on it. But listen to me, says the Rambam. Kvar bi'arnu b'perek sheni milchus yitzei di'ateresh HaKadosh Baruch Hu eino yoidea b'deya shehi chutz mimenu. He doesn't know with a knowledge that's external to him, as humans do, right? Kibnei Adam shehein v'daitom shnayim, that what we know and ourself are two. Elohu yizbarach shmoi v'daitoi echad. Okay, then he says, "Ve'ein daita shel adam yechoyla lahasig davar ze al buryo." We can't fully comprehend this idea because in our experience, I mean, knowing means what it means to us. Ukashem she'ein koyach ba'odam lahasig v'limtzo yamitas ha'boirei she'nema ki lo yirani ha'odam v'choy kach ein b'koyach ha'odam lahasig v'limtzo daita shel boirei. Right? A person, just like he can't know the Rebbeinu Shalom, he can't know his das. He can't comprehend what it means, what the Rebbeinu Shalom's knowledge means. And he says, who? Sha'hakosav oimer, ki loy machshevoisai machshevoiseichem, v'loy darcheichem drochoy no'um Hashem, v'kim shekenu, ein bonu koyach leida heich HaKadosh Baruch Hu yoidea kol abruim u'maseim, aval noida b'loy sofik, shemaisa adam b'yada adam. Ve'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu moishchoy v'loy goizer olav loy laseis kach v'loy sheloy laseis kach. So the Rambam says that it's all in this pasuk. Ki loy machshevoisei machshevoiseichem v'loy darcheichem drochoy. So we have no way to expect to understand what the Rebbeinu Shalom's knowledge means, and therefore the Rebbeinu Shalom knows the future, but nevertheless we have free choice in doing what we choose to do. So that's what the pasuk is saying. Yazov Rosh Darkoi, v'ish oven machshevoisav, v'yoshev el Hashem v'yirachmei, v'elu l'keinu ki yarbe l'sloach. But you might think that you have nothing to repent for, because you might think that since the Rebbeinu Shalom was a Yedei Asidus, obviously it was meant to be. It couldn't be otherwise, right? So the pasuk says, no, ki loy machshevoisai machshevoiseichem, v'loy darcheichem drochoy no'um Hashem. Your thoughts are not my thoughts. Your ways are not my ways. I mean, my knowing is a different type of knowing, and therefore it doesn't contradict free choice, and therefore Yazov Rosh Darkei v'Shavim Machshevoisav. And that's the biur mitzvah zu va'ikrim hanigrorim ima biglola beprokim elu, because the fundamental principle of free choice is critical for tshuva. Without that, Hakadosh Baruch Hu is guilty. Yeah, and Hashema Achi, Anoichi. The Anoichi is the Shema Achi. The Anoichi Hashem Alekecha is the Shema Achi. And that's really a challenge for each and every one of us, even if we, in a sense, accept the principle, but nevertheless, we excuse ourselves quite often for various types of behavior that, we consider it like we had no choice. But I think that's what it means when we say, Sheniye l'rosh, v'loy l'zonov, meaning that we should perceive ourselves as a rosh. The rosh, as opposed to the zonov. Yeah, what's the difference between a head and a tail? I mean, who's thinking about being a tail? But the pshat is that the Rosh is the leader, and the zonov, right, tags along, right? Sometimes a person lives a life of a zonov, right? He just tags along, and he doesn't make the decisions, right? So that's what we're asking for. Sheniya l'Rosh, the loyal zonov, that we should take responsibility. Not only are others not responsible for us, but actually we should become responsible for others. It's up to us to make the world a better place. And I wish you all a ksiva v'chsima toiva, a good gebencht yor, and we should be zoichet to move in the right direction.